Hey, what's up everybody? It's Vids and we're back for some more Mardek, and today we are in for the arena. The primary reason why we wanted to make it into Cambria. We heard about it last time. This time though, we are giving it a go. Now ideally we would of course have made sure to level up our characters, master our skills, and put on all of our best equipment. Now we can do one of those things here for sure, and that is make sure that we have the best equipment ready to go. However, we did, of course, not quite manage to master some of the things that we were looking to master, like, for example, some of our defensive reactions, passive reactions, and things of that nature. However, we can still make sure that we get some good stuff primed and ready to go for this upcoming fight, or series of fights, because remember, the idea with the arena is that we will have 20 battles in a row. No opportunity to use any skills, items, change abilities in between. And so that means that whatever we are setting ourselves up with at the beginning, that's what we can use. So, we want to be mindful of what we go in with. It could also be an opportunity to make sure that you have a lot of battles in which to work on some of those skills. However, I'm going to probably not prioritize that as much as just making sure that we can complete this successfully, because typically it will be one of the most challenging, if not the most challenging, of battles, series of battles, in Chapter 2. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at what we want to have on Mardek, because we were working on the Shadow Blade earlier. It has a high base attack at 25, so it is intriguing in that regard. However, we do have some other intriguing options as well, like the Silver Sword, which has only 16 base attack, but like we were seeing earlier, does have light elemental and effectiveness against undead. Given how many enemies we might expect to encounter who would be weak to light and enemies that are undead, that might make the Silver Sword particularly effective. However, when it comes to enemies that are not weak to light or not undead, then we would find that the Shadow Blade might be more effective. So it's a little bit difficult to determine what might be the best route there. We could, alternatively, opt for a bit of a middle ground and take a type of weapon that has actually even higher base damage than the Shadow Blade here, 25 versus 26 on the Keyblade. Keyblade, of course, does not have any skills, nor does it have any elemental affinity. So that might actually be an interesting option for us to take. I'm intrigued. Let's give that a shot. So then, another thing that we would love to have had the opportunity to do would be to make sure that everyone has the ability to master the Resist Earth passive skill, because it is so strong. We have not yet had the chance to do that. I believe that Dugan has done it, and Emla has as well. However, Dugan is currently working on the Trilobite armor, so he's not going to have the ability to equip both of those simultaneously, I don't think, because that would cost a lot of RP. I don't think he has that much. But I think that between Mardek currently using the Geo Jacket, Dugan currently using the Trilobite armor, and Emla having previously mastered the Resist Earth ability, that should put us in a pretty decent place, Zack being the odd man out here. That is another question though, is do we want to use Zack here, or do we want to actually swap over to Vern? And I'll be honest, I don't know for certain as to which one I would rather do. I am curious what your preferred setup is for the arena, those of you who have done it before. Do you prefer to use Zack or Vern? Which weapon do you prefer to use on, I think, mostly the sword wielders, the one-handed sword wielders? It's most relevant because they're the most options. And then I suppose other things like major masteries, major abilities such as Resist Earth that take up so much of your character's RP. What do you find is the right balance there? So I'm going to give this a shot here. And I think this might be the setup we go for outside of... Do we really not have an accessory on Mardek again? I know we were talking about that for a while, trying to find something else to put in that spot. Maybe throwing on some Earth Resistance might not be a bad idea. I'm thinking actually for Zack here, at least to start, because, like we were saying earlier, he is the only person who does not yet have access to any of the Earth Resistance or Water Resistance abilities, so he's going to be the weakest from an elemental resistance standpoint, so maybe loading up on that stuff at least a little bit with green beads might be a good option. Could even consider putting a second one on, but I do like the belt of movement on him too. And then I would say we might consider putting the second green beads on Mardek. However, with him currently using the Geo Jacket, he already absorbs 20% Earth damage, and sure, it'd be nice to heal even more when we get hit by Earth, but I think I might prefer to cover our bases a little bit more with other things. I'm not sure we're going to have too many people attacking us with light elemental attacks, but resistance to sleep might be useful. That way we don't have to worry about, do we equip the Insomnia ability or not? So that could free up some RP. We have a second version of the Onyx Ring. I thought we had bought one, although I'm not currently seeing it. Oh, here it is. I feel like I would rather put on the Onyx Ring here, because I think we're going to have more enemies dealing dark damage than we are enemies dealing light damage. So that's going to be helpful. The resistance to blindness, also certainly very helpful. I don't know, you can make a case, is blindness more important to resist than sleep? Not entirely sure. Magic defense, 3, also sounds good. So that looks good to me. Let's perhaps now just make sure... Oh, and Dugan as well. We were working on the spirit, or the magic defense reaction here. However, I think on this occasion, instead we're going to go back to the Burial Sword because it has higher damage and does also have the light elemental affinity, which means that more often than not, that will be either neutral or a good thing, because there are so many enemies that we might encounter that will be weak to light. So let's just make sure that we have equipped any and all of the reactions and passive skills that we might want. Here, for example, we see that if Mardek does continue to use Resist Earth, it is amazing, yes. However, it does significantly limit our other options here. We would basically only be able to use +1 agility, which is not terribly impactful. And so it might be kind of nice to be able to put something on like Antibody, Insomnia, Bright Eyes, maybe less so on Vim, because like I was saying before, you cannot stop in between battles to heal or use items, which means that if you have a status effect at the end of a battle, it's going to carry over into the next one. So that can add up pretty quickly if you're not careful. So for that reason, it's very tempting, perhaps unallocate Resist Earth and instead put on Insomnia and Antibody. I think I'm going to go that route. Let me just double check. It was Resistance to Blindness that we picked up with the Onyx Ring. So that means, theoretically, we don't need Bright Eyes. Yeah, so let's go Insomnia and Antibody. We did not manage to master Locomotion, which would have been Resistance to Paralysis. That's fairly uncommon, and like I said, I'm not terribly concerned about Verm and Resistance to Zombification at this stage, because we haven't really seen that. So I know Resist Earth is fantastic. However, I think that because Mardek in particular, being the person wearing the Geo Jacket, does already have 120% resistance to Earth, not too concerned about where that will leave us. So that's Mardek. As for others, Dugan, let's make sure we put back on the offensive reaction that he has with the sword that we put back on him. That's probably the biggest thing. Didn't master any of his magic defensive reactions either, also unfortunate. And we might find that we can make a similar argument for him with Resist Water, because he's currently wearing that Trilobite armor. We could even opt to go Resist Earth instead, because then that would leave us with almost 100% Earth resistance, which, in addition to having over 100% water resistance, I like to cover our bases like that. Now, for him, might we deliberately swap out the Snake Stone and put on the second green beads on him? That way, I believe that's, what, 20 more Earth resistance, so he should get up to 90%, at which point he's taking almost no damage from Earth attacks. I do like that idea. His other accessory at the moment is the Lortian Amulet, which has the ability to teach him a skill that, well, he can't himself learn. That's actually for Vern, so that's not relevant. A little bit of defense, a little bit more magic defense, slight resistance to dark. That is a little bit helpful. +2 spirit, also marginally useful. You could make the case for something else here. Perhaps even putting on something that gives outright immunity to one of the statuses, like poison. So the Snake Stone is tempting me a bit. Let's see if there's anything else along those lines, like, say, the Moonstone Ring, giving resistance to light is not super important, but sleep might be reasonable enough. I think I would prefer doing that. So let's do that one. And that way, we don't have to be quite as concerned about not having all of these things allocated on Dugan, because at least for Insomnia, we will have that covered with the sleep-resistant ring that we just put on. As for Emla, let's take a look at her equipment first. I don't think we've been changing too much on her end recently. I think we should be pretty good as is. Oh, unless we wanted to swap over the Bright Eyes. We were saying previously that Bright Eyes, yeah, we could put it on her just for the sake of mastering another ability on her, but blindness on a spellcaster is not really a huge concern, so therefore that might be something that we would rather have on Dugan, because having resistance to blindness on a physical attacker presumably would be more impactful. So I think I prefer that setup there. And then that makes Emla the one that is resistant to sleep. And +1 spirit is obviously relevant for her as well as a spellcaster. So I like that. Let's look at her reactions. And we were just mastering Magic Stun, and we were saying it is basically a question of which one do we prefer, Stun or Poison, and you could certainly make a case for either. I think I'm going to go with Poison here, but we might find that Paralysis is actually preferable. Magic defensive reactions are equipped, and as for her defensive, or rather, as for her passive reactions here, I think we probably do want to put Resist Earth back on, because she does not have either of the high elemental resistance chestplates on at the moment. So that should be pretty relevant. Unfortunately, she is very close, but not quite able to equip anything else. So it'd be great if we could throw on, say, Antibody to give her additional poison resistance, but alas, it is not the case. But that is another reason, like I was saying before, for deliberately making a point of leveling up a little bit before you go into the arena. As for how comfortable this set of fights might actually end up being, I did find that some of the most difficult fights that we've had thus far were definitely easier than they were when I remember doing them previously, before the Steam version of this game came out. I'm thinking of, in particular, the World Saviors and the Zombie Dragon fights, so will it be a similar situation for the arena? Hard to say, but maybe we'll find that it doesn't take quite as much preparation. But better safe than sorry. So we have the twin trilobites on Zack. That is his best weapon, unless we feel like we want to go with the Bone Slicer, because although it has lower damage, it is effective against undead. That might be worth considering. Otherwise, Kettle Hat, certainly the best helmet option. Bandit Leather, I don't believe he has mastered the evasion defensive reaction yet. Not quite. Another instance of, if we had spent a little more time working on this, then we might have been able to swap over to a different chest plate. However, I think I'm okay with that. And then Belt of Movement, I'm fine keeping this on as an accessory at the moment. 2 defense is not bad, +3 agility is a lot. And resistance, paralysis, not bad either. Could make Zack one of, if not the fastest character in basically every fight, as we were starting to see previously. And then green beads, some magic defense, actually a lot of magic defense, and a little bit of earth resistance, a little bit of vitality. I think it's a decent placeholder when you consider that he doesn't have much in the way of any other resistances on his passives, because, well, he has never used the Judo Jacket, nor has he ever used the Trilobite Armor. I think that might be as good as we can get. He does have 4 more RP at the moment, though, so we could put something else on. As for what we would prefer between blindness immunity, sleep immunity, and poison immunity, I'm thinking we might want to go blindness, because again, he's another physical attacker. And like I was saying before, you could also absolutely opt to use Vern instead of Zac. I don't have a strong preference, so I'm gonna stick with Zac here. But if you prefer Vern yourself, then by all means, go for it. Let's talk to the clerk again. Welcome to the arena. Here you can participate in tournaments, where you battle hordes of monsters and maybe other adventurers in our special battle cave to win fabulous prizes. Are you interested? And yes, the other thing that we admittedly should check, and we might be a little bit too late at this point, is making sure that we have things like potions, mana berries, and status removing potions on every character, so that way, if we find that, say, Mardek is cursed and can't use any abilities to remove that curse himself, then we might want someone else to be able to do that for him, and we want to make sure that they have the items to make that happen. However, it's too late now. Invisible Announcer, begin round 1. Okay. So, here we have the Green Mantid, which we've seen before. I'm not sure if it was necessarily level 10. I'm pretty sure this is a higher level than any Green Mantids we've seen previously. It does have over 600 HP, so a ton. In comparison, Fumarats at level 10, actually we're used to only seeing Fumarats at level 1, so they have more HP, however still certainly far less threatening than the Green Mantid. So, let's make sure that we take this guy out first. And Crescendo Slash is looking like that might be a good option, because for long fights, of course, it does gain power over time. The other thing we want to bear in mind is, like we were saying, status effects, those will carry over from one round to the next. Of course, damage and lost MP, that will carry over as well, so we want to be finishing fights with as much HP as possible. Green Mantid did, of course, just go. And so if we look at the turn order here, Fumarats are next, and although they're relatively weak, they can still apply poison. And so for that reason, I think we actually want to prioritize taking them out here. So instead of using a Lightning Bolt specifically on the Green Mantid, let's target everyone. The thought there being that we want to make sure that we take out those Fumarats before they get the chance to go. Now we have Dugan, and I'm deliberately going to just use a normal attack here in order to avoid having to spend any MP. Ooh. Miss is obviously not great. I'm going to apply the same logic here for Mardek. Okay, and that is enough. So in those circumstances where you, say, have one enemy left who is one hit away from being taken out, those are the types of circumstances under which you might consider deliberately taking the opportunity to use some items to heal, restore MP, remove status effects. Not terribly relevant that time because we only had a few people slightly damaged. However, that stuff will add up over the course of 20 rounds, so we want to be mindful of that. Okay, and again, Zac has beat the V's in terms of speed. However, he's the only person who has that type of speed. So let's take care of one of them. Ideally, make it a little less likely for us to get poisoned, because that is, again, primary concern here. These guys are not going to deal a ton of damage. They're outright with their normal attacks. So, I think they're all air elemental, which means they're all weak to fire, which means we should be able to take them all out like this. However, Emila is someone we should be very conscious of how much MP we're using on her, so I'm tempted to deliberately opt to either use an attack or pass, because I'm pretty confident that we can take all these guys out with one hit on all of our melee characters. So let's get our MP back on her. And then this does require that, of course, we don't miss with any of these characters here, which Dugan unfortunately did in the first round. But, planning long-term, I think this is the way to go. Okay, everyone did hit, fortunately. No problems there. So no MP wasted in that round. And it is actually enough for Zac to master his Quarry Insect ability. Alright, round 3, here we go. And theoretically, the rounds will get progressively a little bit harder as we go on. So here we have some grills, which heal to fire and are weak to water. But we also have some balloons, which are weak to fire and heal to earth. So hard to apply one strategy across the board here. Let's use Crescendo Slash, and actually, let me also double check magic defense versus defense. Balloons have relatively high magic defense, have no defense. So that means we definitely want to target the balloons here. They, I would argue, are also more dangerous in terms of how much damage they can deal. They can also inflict the numb status effect, which is very difficult to get rid of. As for Emla, this is where things get tricky, because there's no one easy answer as to what the best element to use here is. Like we were saying earlier, the grills, the answer for them would be water. The balloons, the answer for them would be air. I think even though the balloons are somewhat resistant to air, I am still going to go with Thunderbolt. The idea there being that we can get rid of at least one of them. I don't think we're going to get the second one. We didn't. And that is some not so insignificant damage there, but I'm hoping that it is just damage that we take here and none of those difficult status effects. So, let's carry on here, and we could potentially opt to heal with Mardek. I think we haven't taken enough damage yet to warrant that. So instead, we'll continue attacking here. Alright. Completed that one and took a little bit of damage, but I think all in all, still fairly solid performance there. Balloon Juice is the potion that can remove numbness. Let's make sure we distribute that a little bit. Put one on Mardek. Round 4, here we go. And lots of phages. This is a difficult one. Like we saw before, very high magic defense. That means we're going to be relying almost exclusively on our melee attackers here. As for which phage we ought to target first, the phages have 25 magic defense, whereas cruciphages only have 20. As for resistances and weaknesses, the phage is particularly weak to air, so I'm thinking we might be able to take this out in one hit with Zac, his normal attack, because his normal attack is air elemental. So let's go for that. Very much so. Okay. Are they technically insects? They are technically insects. Okay, so Zac did also just recently master his quarry insect ability, so he's dealing more damage to them for that reason as well. Now, I think with Emla, this is another circumstance where we just want to use a normal attack, because otherwise, we're not going to deal any damage. We're basically going to be throwing away our MP. Oh, except you got to hit to leech that MP. Okay, and Air, surprisingly, didn't take any damage on Zac. He does not have much in the way of earth resistance, so that was a bit lucky. Only 20% from the green beads. But I suppose his 6 defense was good enough. Then, as for Dugan, we could opt to Barrier Break on this Cruciphage here and remove its shield. Is that overkill? Maybe. But I think let's give it a shot. Make this fight a little bit short, because this is, like I said before, a potentially tricky one. Remember that Mardek does not have a light elemental attack because he's using the Keyblade. However, Dugan does. So that makes it a little bit difficult for Dugan to deal damage to the light phage. And that means that Zac should be able to finish this guy off, except I missed the reaction. Emla, care to do the honors? That you can. 64 damage on Emla. Wow. So she leeches back all of her MP there. It's not so bad there. We did opt to spend a little bit of MP on Dugan. As for whether or not that was truly necessary, it may not have been. Hopefully it doesn't come back to haunt us. Okay, so now we have a bunch of undead. So this is a circumstance where Zac might have been nice to have had the Bone Slicer here. Dugan, however, does have the Light Elemental Sword, so that will be useful because most of these guys, you'll see, will be weak to light. The zombie is, Pestilent is, Skeleton is also weak, and so is the Drowned Corpse. So some common themes here. As for who is weakest against air, I suspect it will be the Pestilent because it is Earth Elemental, and Earth is typically weak to air. So I think, again, I'm going to opt to not use Crescendo Slash, specifically, so that we can make sure that attack is air elemental. And then, as for the other undead, I think generally the way to go is actually fire. Fire's the best for the zombie. Fire's the best for the skeleton. Fire's not so great for the drowned corpse. So I think that is still the way to go, though, because that's 2 out of 3. I will opt to use Flame against everyone. Not quite enough to take the zombie out in one hit. Drowned corpse certainly has a little bit of a ways to go. Let's prioritize the drowned corpse. I think it has some nastier abilities that we want to make sure it doesn't have the opportunity to use, and that should be more than enough opportunity for Mardek to take out the zombie here. So spent a little bit of mana on Emla. Okay, when you put a motion potion on Mardek, you did not previously have one of those. That's also big. But other than that, I think that was a good one. Okay, now, again, these bats would normally be able to attack first. Fortunately, Zach is quick enough to take one of them out preemptively. As for whether we want the Corpse Drinker, well, or the Corpse Drinker, I'm going to say probably the Corpse Drinker. Remind me, though, with the Blood Clots and the Ooze, they are very defensive, not magic defensive, so those are going to be Emla targets. So all the more reason for us to deliberately go after the Corpse Drinkers here. 1 down. One of them will, of course, get a chance to hit. Did deal a somewhat significant amount of damage. Remember, we've taken a little bit here and there in a few rounds, and therefore, although we've had no humongous hits on Emla, it's starting to add up a little bit now, so we want to be mindful of that. As for which element we want to use on the oozes, the ooze is weak to air, whereas the blood clot doesn't really matter, equally resistant to everything. So let's go for air in that case. That might even be able to take out Corpse Drinker as well. It is. Not enough, however, to take out the blood clot. It is very close. Now he has 30 defense. I think that means that Dugan is going to have to use a power attack if he has any hope of breaking through that defense, and he can. So you'd like to see that. Again, had to opt to use some MP on Emla, and she did take a hit. It's unfortunate, but hopefully we can heal that one off at some point. Okay, lots of goblins here. They are potentially capable of dealing some status effects, but the damage I don't think is going to be terribly huge, so that should be okay. With that in mind, who do we want to target first? Fun Goblin, I think, can inflict sleep. As for Posh Goblin, I don't recall, might also be able to do sleep. Poor Goblin might not do any status effects, I don't remember. And Hobgoblin, I think, is relatively benign. I'm not sure if we can do any. So let's make sure that we take out the... perhaps Posh Goblin here. The more powerful of the two that I think might be able to inflict sleep. Okay, we did one-shot him there, so that's good. Emla might be able to take everyone else out from here on out. Hobgoblin might be a little bit tricky because it does have significantly more HP than the Fun Goblin, at least. Poor Goblin in a similar spot there. The answer for this guy would be air. The answer for this guy would be water. The answer for this guy would also be air. That leads me to believe we probably ought to use air here. Granted, Fun Goblin has such low HP, it may not really matter much. Hobgoblin, we could potentially take him out outright here with Dugan. However, if we look at the turn order here, this is another scenario where we might have the opportunity to sneak in a heal or some sort of item, because if Dugan uses an item here, then Mardek can go next and take out this guy before he has the opportunity to take his turn. So I think we try to do that. And it might just be a small little heal, a potion, on Emla. That'll be enough to top her off. And that's enough to take this guy out. Okay. So yeah, we want to try to identify those opportunities whenever we see them. Get out ahead of them. Make sure that we don't find ourselves in a difficult situation. Okay, lots of drill ions now. Previously, we saw these guys in the gem mines, and we only fought one, maybe two of them at a time. They don't have much in the way of defenses, however. They are on the stronger side if they do manage to land a hit, and I believe they can lower defenses too. Fortunately, they will, of course, all have the same weaknesses, that being air, which does mean that Zach should be able to take one of them out here with his normal attack, because that will be air elemental. Emla, this is another circumstance where we probably do want to use the lightning bolt against everyone. However, we are starting to blow through a fair bit of MP on Emla. So, this is another circumstance where if we could find an opportunity to leech some, that would probably be helpful, and this might be it. Because, like we saw earlier, the Phages, very resistant to magic. We're not going to want to try to target them with any spells. However, the Spectres, the opposite. Very strong physical skills, whereas, comparatively at least, weaker to magic. So if we take out the Spectres first, that might mean that Emla has at least one turn in which to physically attack, ideally, the Phage, because the Phage is weak to air, and Emla's attacks are currently air with the ROM that she's using. So, we can try hitting one of... Well, I was going to say we can try taking out one of the Spectres. We can try taking out one of the Phages, ideally the Chris Phage here. Zac, I think is the way to go. It is tempting to attack the Phage, because it is weaker to the air elemental attack that Zac is going to have here. However, ideally we would save that for Emla. So I'm going to focus on the Spectres first here, which means either air or fire. And theoretically, air would be better for the Phage, however, with 25 magical defense, I don't think it's going to make a difference. I don't think it's going to break through those defenses either way. It didn't, however, it did poison. So there's a small benefit there. It did use Mass Barrier, which is actually a slight variation on the barrier ability that we've seen previously. It would have created a shield for everyone on the team. Now, granted, Phage was the only enemy remaining at that point in time, so he was the only one that got a shield. But if there were more, then that would have been relevant. And I think it might be overkill at this point. Try to use a barrier break on it. I would potentially think that we might want to opt to save Dugan's MP and not break through that barrier at the moment. It does have enough HP remaining, though, that may not be that easy to pull off, especially if we miss. It might still get the chance to squeeze in one more turn. And I think, Mardek, we're not looking too much for you to heal or use any status effect removing skills there. We should be fine in that regard. And here, we find ourselves in an interesting situation. Zac probably could take this Phage out here. Do we deliberately try not to take it out so that Emla can leech some MP? I think we do. I think we do. And it is a little bit of a risk. Does potentially mean, that we could end up taking extra damage unnecessarily, and we did. Is it worth it, though? Hard to say. I'm going to give it another shot here. Emla, you got to hit this time, though. Okay, if she does leech 31, and fortunately, Phage opts to attack someone who is capable of completely resisting the damage. So, all in all, we could give it one more shot here. We could also use a mana barrier or something similar to that to restore some MP via items, rather than the attacking option. However, on this occasion, I knew that Emla, assuming she hit, would be capable of taking him out. So it's a free way to restore some MP in that case. Okay, round 10. Halfway mark. And here we find a bandit and an adventurer. Now, we actually did talk to these people in the area just outside the arena before we went in here. And now, it's real. Now we're fighting them. So, let's take a closer look. The bandit is weak to fire, has decent resistance to air, a little bit of resistance to earth. As for the adventurer, a little bit less on the resistance side of things. Let's perhaps target the adventurer with an air attack. Oh, and that bandit is fast. Okay. And the adventurer does go next. Oh, did I attack the adventurer when I meant to attack the bandit? Yes, I did. Oops. So, the answer, again, is really just either air or fire, but not an obvious choice here. Let's go for fire. And, well, they counter with a little bit of fire themselves. That is the most damage we've taken from one hit yet. So, we want to be careful and don't let these two hang around for too much longer here. Dugan was, of course, the one that took the hit. I think on this occasion, it is best to at least get rid of one of them as soon as we can. And I don't think this is really an enemy that we want to toy around with. Like we were doing earlier with the phages, where we were deliberately leeching some MP, I think these guys are strong enough that we just want to make sure that we take them out before they hurt us even more. Might this be an opportunity for Mardek to heal Dugan? It could be. It could be. I don't think that Zack is capable of taking out the bandit in one hit unless he happens to crit. Of course, we can't really rely on that. So is this the best opportunity to heal with Mardek, or would he be better off attacking himself? I think it might actually be better to attack, because now he might be within range for Zack. Oh, wow. Very much not the case. And now Dugan gets hit again. But I think that is all the more reason to make sure that we do take the opportunity to heal Dugan here, and maybe make sure that we don't deal the killing blow right now. And for that reason, maybe leech just a tad more MP here. Dugan, you could potentially use the item on yourself. That certainly would be an option. Probably should have done that with Emla, because she has the least to offer offensively if she's not using her spells. Now, Dugan, would you actually take this guy out if you were to land a hit? I think if you were to do a normal hit, you probably would not. Let's give it a shot. Well, you could certainly also make the case that we ought not to have hit our offensive reaction there deliberately, so that way we would have made sure that we dealt less damage. We didn't really want to deal that much. Wanted him to be just one hit away from taking him down, so that way we could heal with Mardek and then finish him off with Zack next turn. Now we have Miasmarines, and Dugan still not looking great because we, of course, did not get the opportunity to heal him there. So, we want to be mindful that that should be pretty high on our priority list. One down, of course, with Zack. If you miss, that's all the more helpful. Dugan gets poisoned too. As does Emla. Now, this is the type of thing that can add up very quickly if we're not careful. The Miasmarines, they're weak to air. We might be able to take them all out in one hit here, but I'm not sure we necessarily want to do that, because we have everyone will take a turn, or they go next, which means that theoretically, if everyone is capable of taking them out in one hit, then that means we have one free person left to either heal or remove some of these poisons, and I'm thinking that's probably going to be a Mardek thing. So let's take out just one, specifically one, of Miasmarines here. Dugan, of course, will take damage with the poison, so take this guy out. Then Mardek, the question is, do we use Remove Taint and get rid of the poison, or would we rather heal here? I think at the moment I would rather heal Dugan, because although long-term the poison could theoretically add up to be more damage than certainly the amount of damage that Emla has on here, if not maybe even Dugan if we let that poison stick around for a very long time, but in the short term, a heal is definitely the most significant. So now you should be able to take this guy out here, and again, we were pretty confident that Miasmarines would not have had the opportunity to hit us again, assuming that Zack hit the target. And that is actually Zack mastering the evasion defensive reaction, so that's good. Round 12. Lots of balloons. Now remember, they are pretty defensive to magic, and they are spellcasters themselves, and relatively strong ones at that, so they are dangerous. You can also inflict numb, which is hard to get rid of, as we were saying earlier. I'm not sure how effective Zack is going to be, and in fact, we probably want to use a normal attack so that we have the air element to it, not the physical one. That is enough to take one out, so that is a welcome sight. Now, the problem is Emla and Dugan will go before the balloons. Mardek will not. Therefore, unless Emla can take out multiple here, they will get to go before Mardek goes, and likely will have the opportunity to damage us. So let's go with Lightning Bolts. As for whether it will be enough to take anyone out, unfortunately it won't be. And Dugan, maybe attack the one with the most HP on the assumption that you have enough damage to take anyone out. I think that might be the case. It is. Okay, so two of them will still get the opportunity to attack us here. -5 defense is not good. but the raw damage is actually quite low. So I think we dodged a bit of a bullet there. And for Mardek, now we find ourselves in a similar situation to where we were in the previous, or maybe 2 battles ago, where we have 4 people now who can take a turn before the balloons go next. So assuming that Zach can take one out on his turn, Emma can take another out on her turn, that means that potentially both Mardek and Dugan, or at least 2 characters, have the opportunity to do some sort of healing or item using before the balloons get to go again. So for that reason, I think we do also use this turn from Mardek to heal or remove taint. And I think we're going to remove taint this time because nobody is significantly damaged. Let's do that. And with Zach, let's take someone out. Again, let's deliberately target the one with the most HP here. Then for Amulet, we'll use an antidote on Dugan. And then on Dugan's turn, we'll take out the blue. So that way, we now have removed all the poisons. Most people are close to full HP. They're not entirely full. But I think we got through that fight relatively unscathed. Now this looks familiar. Of course, Colocanths and Trilobites that we've been fighting recently, so this should be something that we are more than accustomed to doing. However, that doesn't mean that I remember what the best option is in terms of how we ought to attack these guys. Air is actually the way to go with Colocanths, so again, better to use our normal attack rather than Crescendo Slash on Zac at least. Trilobites, similar scenario, not quite as extreme. The Trilobites are weaker to magic, whereas the Colocanths, they're similar. Physical versus magic. Let's deliberately target... make a case for either. Let's go for the Colocanths. 1 down. And ideally we would use Earth. And it's enough to take out the Trilobites and Colocanths there. I think those guys, if you do allow them to get a hit in, they are capable of doing some not so great stuff, so willing to go a little bit aggressive there with Emla and attack everyone simultaneously. Now this is an interesting group. I'm not sure if this is actually possible to see this outside of the arena. Zombie, Skeleton, Ooze, and Chrysophage. I think the priority here is first and foremost to take out the Chrysophage because remember, it can create shields. So that will make life difficult if we allow it to do that. So let's make sure we take that out first. With Zac. Okay, so Chrysophage down. Next priority, I think, is probably the Ooze, because the Ooze is, I think, the enemy capable of dealing the most damage, and it is also the enemy that is specifically weak to spells. So let's take it out there. Potentially could have opted to attack everyone with a spell from Emla, and one of these guys is going in between Dugan and Mardek. Let's try to take that one out here. Let's verify which one it is by which one has higher agility. 10 on the Skeleton. Zombie has 5, so the Skeleton is the one that goes next. So I think we ought to make sure that we target the Skeleton here, take it out, so that way Mardek gets to go before the Zombie goes. And I think it does make sense to attack the Zombie outright rather than trying to heal anyone at this stage. I don't think we have enough damage on any character. Oh, I needed to hit that reaction and I missed it. Fortunately, the Zombie bails us out here, and suddenly, now we have 4 turns in which to take out one enemy with 19 HP remaining. So, this suddenly becomes an opportunity to do a little bit of healing. And I think, looks like Emla has the lowest HP at the moment. We'll throw a potion at her. Not dire, but we can make it happen, so why not? This is also, I think, an opportunity to reach some MP with her. And she crits. Honestly, not bad. Does, of course, mean that Dugan and Mardek did not have an opportunity to go there, which might have been a nice thing to have, but reaching some MP, also not bad at all. Okay, and so now we are getting far enough that we are actually running into mini-bosses in these rounds, so it is the Zombie Locksmith once more. He does have haste, a physical shield, and a magic shield. Has some physical defense, no magic defense. Has a familiar weapon as well. Oh, and in terms of elements, he is weakest to fire. And that is pretty much it. And light as well, but that is to be expected of a zombie. So, for that reason, Zach actually probably ought to use Crescendo Slash here for the first time in a long time, because the Air Elemental doesn't really help him at all. As for Emila, probably use the Fire because she has access to it. And he does hit Emila and curse her, which is basically the worst thing that could have happened for Emila, at least, because Curse will prevent her from using any spells. So, as for how we ought to remove that, because I think we almost certainly ought to remove that. We do it with Dugan. We wait to do it with Mardek. I think we deliberately use Barrier Break on Dugan here, because the zombie does have that shield up, and we shouldn't get our reaction there, because it was Dark Elemental attack, and this guy heals to Dark Elemental attack, so we actually wanted to deal as little damage as possible. Now, Mardek also just got cursed, which is probably the other person who we were least looking forward to getting cursed, because that means he cannot heal or use any of his status effect removing abilities. We do have Holy Water, which does remove curses and zombification. However, the question here is, do we prioritize Mardek or do we prioritize Emila? I think we actually prioritize Emila. The reason for that being is Emila will go... Well, Mardek has already lost his turn, in that it would cost him a turn to use an item that removes curses, and however, Emila, if we were to remove her curse right now, for her next turn, she could take an action. A useful action, if we wanted her to. So let's do that. It is, of course, a more offensive choice rather than a defensive choice that might have been removing the curse from Mardek, so could potentially make the choice based on that as well. Let's continue to use Crescendo Slash on Zach, as it will become more powerful, and after having removed the barrier, it will deal more damage for that reason as well. So here is that scenario which I was talking about earlier. We could opt to use Flame here if we would like. We could also opt to remove the curse on Mardek, assuming that Emila has anything to do that with, and she does not. Okay, so that makes that choice easy. And there's a scenario, like we were talking a little bit about earlier, where you want to make sure that you have all the right items on each character, so that everyone has the ability to remove any given status effect, and we did not do that in advance of this fight. So, that means that Emila will continue to use Flame. Remember that Barrier Break only removes the physical, not the magical barrier, so he's still having the damage that we deal with our spells. As for Dugan, now we could opt to go a different route here. And so since he no longer needs to use Barrier Break, that means we won't be healing our opponent, thankfully. We could use Spirit Blade, and it would deal some extra damage because he is weak to the Ether elements. However, Dugan's normal attacks are light elemental with this sword, which is even more effective against this guy. Might also be an opportunity to remove Curse from Mardek. However, we still don't have any items to do that. I think Mardek might be the only one who has that, so that was certainly a mistake. So let's go with the normal attack on Dugan. I think that will be the highest damage option, and it is quite strong against it. And yes, Zombie Locksmith, in case it wasn't clear before, capable of dealing many status effects. This is the type of thing that can set you up for failure in future rounds if you're not careful, if you're not prepared to remove those. So, I think, Mardek, we were saying it earlier, you are the only one who has Holy Water, seemingly. So you ought to use it on yourself. Emila is also looking very bad in terms of HP. I did not even realize that. I think that is reason enough. Well, hold on. So the Zombie Locksmith does go next, which means that if he does opt to attack Emila, Emila could be in trouble here. We might be able to deal enough damage to take her out. However, if Zach were to continue to attack here, he has used a couple rounds of Crescendo Slash, so he will be continuing to get more powerful with his attacks. Granted, he's still not going to be able to take out the Zombie Locksmith in one hit here. Maybe, just maybe, if he crits, he would be able to. But even then, I'm not sure. So I think it is still better for us to take it slow here, use the better potion on Emila, get her up close to full HP. And there's Numb. Like I said, that is one of the more difficult status effects to remove as well. It is one that prevents Mardek from using physical attacks, which is maybe not quite as relevant because he can at least still heal. I think Dugan might actually be our strongest attacker here. Okay, so And he's also, when the zombie locksmith is attacking, reducing some of our stats as well. Hasn't hit Zach yet, but you see Emla has minus agility. Mardek has minus strength. And there you see, Mardek cannot use any attacks right now. So, based on how much damage we've been doing previously, I think that Dugan would be capable of one-shotting the locksmith at this point. However, the locksmith will go before Dugan gets a chance to go next. So, can across Mardek, Emla, and Zach, can they deal enough damage to take him out before he gets to go next? I think between Emla and Zach, the answer is yes. Mardek, however, not being able to use any of his normal attacks, that's probably not terribly relevant for him. He probably can't do much offensively. So, for that reason, I think this is an opportunity for us to continue to either heal or remove some status effects. And one that comes to mind would be the numbness on Mardek, because, like I said, not a lot of ways to do that other than using balloon juice, and that might be another one that might only have 1 or 2 people who have it. Mardek fortunately did. So, let's use the flame here. And all we're hoping for is that that brings us close enough for Zach to take down the zombie locksmith with 1 hit here. And remind me, does air matter? It doesn't. Okay. We don't need to use a normal attack here, because that's not going to give us any bonus damage from it being an air elemental attack. So we'll use Crescendo Slash, and it is enough. So Emla, he's still somewhat damaged and is still paralyzed. Mardek still took a bit of damage. I think we managed to recover from much of the damage that we took there. And here we have a zombie monster and an abomination. So, for these guys, we saw them in the catacombs previously. Fortunately, there's only 2 of them. They can deal a ton of damage, remember. I think that is the most dangerous thing about them. Less so on the status effects, and because there's only 2 of them, we can focus on taking down 1 at a time here, hopefully. And we did just that. Now, there you see Emla skipping her turn because she's paralyzed. So that could be costly here. Dugan probably could take down this abomination in 1 hit, because it is very weak to light. And remember, Dugan's attacks are light elemental. However, if we were to do that, that would mean that Mardek would not have the opportunity to use any healing or remove any status effects from Emla, which might be an interesting thing to do at this stage, because we do have 2 people going before the abomination takes its next turn. However, that means that under ideal circumstances, we would have Dugan be the person to remove the status effect or heal a little bit, and then Mardek be the person to deal the finishing blow against the abomination. But I don't know if Mardek has enough offense to do that. If he had the silver sword, this would be the type of scenario in which that would be very helpful. Then we would be very confident that he could do it. But the Keyblade, I just don't know if he has enough power. So, I think we just take this guy out. It's tough. We may come back to regret that if it turns out that Emla being paralyzed really hurts us here. Remember, we're getting very close to the end now. Round 17, there are 20 rounds, so rounds are only going to get harder, and that means that we're definitely going to want to get rid of that paralysis as soon as we can, so that we're back up to as close to full strength as we can be for those final fights. Now, the abominations, we of course saw them in the previous fight. The phantoms, however, we've not yet seen in the arena. They have very high physical defense, so it's going to be hard to break through that. That means that Emla will be very relevant, and we do have a motion potion, precisely 1 motion potion on Zach. I think it is worth doing that here. Because Emla does go next, and that hopefully means that we can take out 2 phantoms in 1 turn with her, which would mean either air or fire. The abominations are also weak to fire, so that does mean the answer should be flame here. How can we do? Not enough to take anyone out, unfortunately. That's no good. And there you see the stun getting reapplied and numb applied to Mardek. Stat specs are going to add up. So, Dugan is next. And our next enemies to go will be the abominations. So, if we take them out with Hugin and Mardek, then that might mean that Zack and Emla can do some healing or status removing. Ideally, we would have Zack use a motion potion to remove the paralysis on Emla. However, we know that Zack just used his last motion potion, so we might be in a bit of trouble here. Let's see. Hugin does have a motion potion, so if we wanted to, we could opt to use that here. That would, of course, mean that we would not be able to take out both of the abominations before they go, so one of them would be getting hit. And they do hit very hard. So that is a pretty big risk. Are we willing to take that? It's a question of, would we rather make sure that Emla can go on her turn, because we removed the paralysis, or would we rather make sure that we take out the abominations before they get the chance to go? And it's not an easy answer. I'm leaning toward taking out the abominations. Reason for that being is they might be able to one-shot some people, which would obviously be a pretty big concern, except Mardek, of course, cannot use any of his attacks because, well, he is currently numbed. That means that Mardek, instead, will be the person to remove that paralysis. Abomination versus Mardek. Mardek does have more of the curse removal potion, so that should be okay for Mardek to devote his turn to that. As for Zack here, could even opt to heal Emla. She's not looking good there either. Or it's either that or attacking Phantoms. I think that Emla is still the person who we want to have attacking the Phantoms. So let's use the better potion here. Emla should be able to take out both Phantoms, and maybe even the Abomination here. By doing this, that would mean that Mardek would be going into the next round with both the Curse and Numbness, which is definitely not great. If we were to, say, take a slower approach here, and find a way to only take out the Phantoms and leave the Abomination, might that give us enough time to remove some things from Mardek? Yes, but that would mean that, well, I just don't think that's feasible. Because if we do the Flame, we're going to take out everyone. We can't specifically target only the Phantoms and not the Abomination, which would be ideal. The only way we could come close to that would be if we, of course, targeted just a single Phantom, and that means that one of them will get the chance to take their turn right after Emla, might even apply a status effect, in which case that kind of defeats the purpose, so I think we just take everyone out here, or at least hope to. That we do. Okay. So this is going to be a tough one next time round, because it is third to last fight. Mardek is not in good shape here. It is a zombie warrior, another enemy that can hit very hard. And is there anything that we can do in advance of Mardek's turn? To help him out here, Zack could use a balloon juice to remove the numbness. I think the curse is probably more important to remove, and I think Mardek is actually the only person who has the ability to remove that right now with his items, which is unfortunate. But I think that means that Zack instead goes for an attack. Of what variety, it doesn't matter whether it is non-elemental or if it is air. So for that reason, let's go Crescendo Slash. Oh, and I missed the reaction. Honestly, not good. And Emla, similarly, let's just double check here, could also opt for Balloon Juice, but does not have a way to remove the curse. Oh, except for Remedy, I'm forgetting, actually removes any and all status effects. I completely forgot about this. This could be very useful for Mardek because he has 2 status effects right now, so that would remove both of them in one turn. I think that is actually the way to go. Oh no, just kidding. Zack did remove the numbness in the previous turn, so it does still get rid of the curse. Maybe a little bit overkill, when we could have potentially, if we had thought about using the remedy initially, just taken it all away with one turn using that instead of also using the balloon juice, but 20/20 hindsight there. Okay, so Zombie Warrior did attack Zack and take out roughly half of his HP. Remember that Zombie Warrior will go berserk later on in this fight and will basically double his damage in the process, so at that point in time, we'll basically one-shot any and everyone. So, at least for now, we're comparatively somewhat safe. Remind me, fire is technically his weakest element. We could, if we thought this fight was going to be long enough, opt to boost with Dugan to make him more powerful for future rounds. But I'll be honest, I often find that this does not pay out long term, or at least takes too long to set up, and even when it does get set up, it doesn't feel terribly significant. So, for that reason, I think we're going to continue with a normal attack here. It will be light elemental, so that should be very effective. Mardek can actually take a turn here, which is fantastic. Let's heal Zach. He's not looking so great. Just in time for Zach's turn. Continue the crescendo and actually hit the reaction this time, fortunately. Emla, now you can attack. Flame is the answer from an elemental standpoint, and against this guy on pretty low HP, not only does he berserk, he hastes, which means he goes more often as well. So only Dugan and Mardek will have the opportunity to go before his next turn. That might still be enough, because this will be a light elemental attack. Oh, Dugan, you needed to hit that. Whereas Dugan having Sure Slash when you need it, only on Zac, unfortunately. Remember, there is technically an alternative strategy to deal damage against undead foes with Mardek, and I'm a little bit tempted to give it a shot now. If we opt to heal them, we can actually deal a significant amount of damage that way. There are also perhaps some items here that could do that too. Let's go this route though. Let's see how much this does. Just shy of 300 damage, and there you have it. Yes, he's capable of one-shotting Emla, as we just saw. And so, normally, this would have been Zac's turn, and then Emla would have also had a turn before the zombie goes next. However, since the zombie obviously just took out Emla, it's only Zac. And I think that that is problematic, because even if Zac does take out the zombie warrior here, then that does of course mean that Emla is going into the next fight sitting on 1 HP and is extremely vulnerable. And then we might be stuck in this cycle where we're constantly having to spend a turn reviving Emla, maybe only bringing her back up with half HP with the Phoenix down, in which case, that's a cycle we don't want to really get trapped in. So I think we get out in front of it a little bit here, and use Zac's only Phoenix down, which is very dangerous, using his last one here. I'm hopeful that Emla can take this guy out in one hit. It was close? Okay, it is enough. So Emla's still vulnerable on half HP here, but she's not sitting on 1, which would have been the case if she had stayed down at the end of this fight. Second to last round, so it should be very tricky, is 3 zombie monsters. Truth be told, I think this might be a little bit easier than the zombie warrior that we just fought, because these guys, for the most part, I think we'll find that we're able to take them out in one hit. Zac certainly can. At least I think we saw him do it in a previous round. These might be higher level zombie monsters. We're about to find out. Just barely managed to take him out that time. That was big. As for Emla, remind me again, no elements matter here. There's nothing that is particularly strong or weak. In which case, take a pick. It is not enough. So, however, there is still time for both Mardek and Dugan to go before the zombie monsters go. This is an interesting question. I think that Dugan could certainly take a zombie monster out in one hit because he has light elemental attacks. Those will be super effective. Mardek could certainly at least finish off the zombie that is very damaged at this point in time. So, between the two of them, they could get rid of them, and we move on to the next fight. However, that would mean that we'd be going into the next fight with Emla on half HP. Do we want to deliberately keep one of the zombie monsters alive and spend one of our turns healing up Emla instead? Now, zombie monsters might be able to deal a fair bit of damage themselves, in which case that might not pay off. I think that is probably the case, unfortunately. So I think we just go with taking these guys out. Emla levels up, which does give her a little bit more HP, but not enough to be significant. And it's tempting. It's really tempting, but I do think that we just go for the kill here. So zombie monster down. And if we had known in advance that Emla was not going to take out a monster in one hit, then we probably should have had her heal herself on her turn using an item. Here we have the final round, and what do you know? Ah, I see the final round is to be a mere breeze. We are up against these puny little soldiers again, saviors. This battle shall be just as effortless as the last time we fought. We may as well give ourselves haircuts during battle. We will be putting so little effort into fighting you. But didn't they kill us last time? 9! That must be some deranged fantasy dream thing in your dozy little head, my dear. Where the laws of reality no longer make sense. For we are the world's saviors. It is not possible for us to lose. Give us the best that you have, human soldiers, and it may just give us a bit of a warm-up as we pummel you to the ground, as if you were a party of old women who had decided one day while knitting together to go adventuring, but it turned out that they weren't very good at it. Old women. We'll show you who's an old woman, and we'll also win. Alright, final round is a rematch against the World Saviors, and Benny is insanely fast. He's even faster than Zack when he has the belt movement on. Fortunately, didn't manage to inflict any status effects. He, of course, is capable of doing that quite a bit himself, in addition to many of the other enemies that we encountered on our way to these guys. And this is why I wanted to make sure that we were healing a lot and making sure that we weren't coming into this fight with any of those effects, because these guys are tough enough as is. And I think the same rule applies as when we were fighting them initially, and that is take out Aelia first because she is the healer. As for how best to do that, well, target her with Zack. Don't think he's going to be able to take her out in one hit, so unfortunately that does mean she does manage to get a shield off on herself, no less. However, since Emla is next, that might not be terribly relevant because she's going to use spells rather than physical attacks, and Aelia is weak to Earth. So, that means that a stone explosion might be able to take her out here. It does. Okay, so that's big. Oh, I missed the reaction there. That's no good. Because Bernard is capable of dealing a hefty amount of damage with his attacks. So, as for who our next priority is, I think it is likely Bernard, because he is likely the most capable of dealing out damage consistently. Bartholomew, remember, when he does hit, will deal a ton of damage as well. However, his accuracy is so low that will be fairly inconsistent, and he becomes more powerful the more members of the World Saviors that you take down. So, at least at this stage, he's not as dangerous as he will be later on. So I think the order is Bernard, then Bartholomew, then Benny. So, as for how we ought to take him out, let's take a closer look. He's weak to water. Okay. And slightly weak to the light. So for that reason, I think we do go for a normal attack against him. He doesn't have a lot of HP. Theoretically possible. This might be able to take him out. It is so close. Okay, fortunately, Bartholomew misses there. With Emla being on low HP, he probably could have taken her out in one hit there. So, this might be an opportunity to heal Emla. I think we ought to take that. Well, yes, because Bernard is just one hit away from being taken out for sure. However, Benny goes after Mardek, and then Zack and Emla will both have an opportunity to go for Bernard, so we can certainly cut off Bernard before he gets to go next. So I think that means we can do this now. Get Emla back up to full. Oh, that's unfortunate though. Okay. Do still think we'll have enough damage here. Crescendo Slash should start to become relevant, particularly relevant for long fights like this. So, now that Bernard is out, Bartholomew is next on the list. He is not weak to any particular element, but he is a little bit resistant to Earth. So, let's go for perhaps a Thunderbolt. It does apply poison, so a little bit of extra damage from that as well. Then, could opt for a Barrier Break because Bartholomew is a little bit weak to Dark. However, I thought I remembered noticing that damage is actually slightly lower on Barrier Break than it is on other skills. I might be wrong about that. Let's actually opt for a Spirit Flame here, I think. Because Bartholomew is somewhat resistant to light elements. Only 71 damage there. I think that is actually fortunate that Bartholomew did not hit us for more. So... oh, except Mardek. Oh, he took the hit from Bernard as well, so Mardek is quite damaged at the moment. So let's heal up here. Not quite full HP, but close, and I was a little caught off guard there. Did not quite hit that reaction. So, we can continue the Crescendo Slash, continue to build up the strength. Bartholomew getting close to going down with that poison. One more hit probably will be enough after this. Or maybe not. I think that Dugan will also need to target him here. Let's throw another Spirit Blade at him. That's more than enough. So now it is Mardek and then Benny and only Benny. I don't necessarily think we need to focus too much on the defenses here. Benny by himself is not terribly threatening. Will, of course, continue to try to hit us with status effects like poison and sleep and blindness. But that was another reason why I wanted to make sure we were putting on as many immunities to status effects as possible for all the fights leading up to this, but also in anticipation of Benny. So, let's continue Crescendo Slash, and at this point, it's getting very powerful. So Emla should be able to finish things here. Let's just verify which element we ought to use. The answer is definitely fire. And Benny goes down along with the rest of the World Saviors. That is the victory for the entire arena. Does give us a Phoenix down. We did have to use one to bring back Emla at one point, and a remedy. We also had to use one of those. Bumper Juice, strong healing potion. We'll take that too. Damn you, puny soldiers. This must have been one of those unwinnable plot battles. Annoying. But it means that next time we fight, we will have to win. Congratulations, fighter. You've won the tournament, apparently. Here, have a prize. Also, get out of here. Alright, and there you have it. We have won the arena. And if we take a look at what our prize is, we find that it is a champion sword, which is a 32 base attack sword, which is really high. Strongest sword, actually. A finely crafted sword awarded to the champion of the arena. It serves as a decorative trophy and a powerful weapon with a high critical hit chance. It also has a plus 30% damage offensive reaction, which is very strong. Dugan had it with his greatsword that he recently got. However, our one-handed sword characters did not yet have access to it, so getting that is a strong bonus. And then, like the description said, 10% crit chance. Compare that to Shadow Blade is only 4, Silver Sword also only 4, so lots of crit as well. So this is really good. Let's put it on Mardek, and or on the offensive reaction before I forget that it exists. Unfortunately, can't quite get enough RP to put that in one of the quarries, but I think we'll work on the offensive damage reaction there. So with that, I think this is a good place for us to wrap up this video. And, that is probably the single most difficult fight, or series of fights, in Chapter 2 at least, so glad that we got the chance to successfully make it through the arena.